I am again thankful to all news media outlets for letting me use their contents. I greatly appreciate that. I am available 24/7 if they need any assistance. Now go to the headlines. Hi and very warm welcome at Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Following news headlines have been reported by world major English news channels and news agencies. So please watch it.
Tonight, breaking news just moments ago. President Trump ordering sweeping new tariffs, major tariffs on our trading partners. Economists already warning that Americans will see higher prices, and the market's responding already tonight. Also breaking at this hour, the highest level warning for tornadoes and floods in the hours ahead. Those storms moving in right now. And you'll see the images tonight, passengers evacuating on the wing of a plane. First tonight, President Trump imposing those major tariffs on America's trading partners. Economists say the highest tariffs on goods coming into the U.S. in more than a century, and that Americans will be paying higher prices. President Trump tonight arguing it's necessary to bring manufacturing back. In addition, a 25% tariff on all imported vehicles going into effect at midnight. What this now means for anyone planning on buying a car. Tonight, the market's responding with the futures are indicating already. Also at this hour, what authorities are calling a multi-day, life-threatening storm from Texas up to Michigan, then moving east. The highest threat level at this hour for tornadoes and flash flooding. One twister on the ground for 17 miles. Ginger Z in the storm zone, she'll time this out. Tonight, passengers evacuating on the wing of a plane, an American Airlines flight, evacuated just moments after landing, and the reason behind it. Tonight, how much longer will Elon Musk have his role alongside President Trump? What sources are now telling ABC News. A deadly scene, the suspect opening fire inside of Walgreens. Tonight, authorities revealing the possible motive. The tragedy for a family on spring break, a 7-year-old girl killed by a falling boulder. Facing a Saturday deadline, the major U.S. company tonight now making a last-minute bid to buy TikTok. And tonight, celebrating actor Val Kilmer.
You can be my wingman anytime.
Tonight, hear this question. Do you know how he got that nickname in Top Gun? As we also remember his roles in Batman Forever, The Doors, and Tombstone. From ABC News.
Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. All right, Peter, I think everybody wants to know, is this a long-term strategy, or is this just a negotiating tactic to get other countries to drop their us?
That's a great lead-off question. I had to laugh when you're telling us about how Israel and Doug Ford and Vietnam say, hey, we'll drop our tariffs. You know, they've been waiting for 40 years for that call in the Oval Office. We never got it. But here's what's really important, Jesse. As bad as the higher tariffs are that these countries around the world charge us, the non-tariff barriers are worse. The non-tariff barrier currency manipulation, the VAT tax distortions, export subsidies, dumping, counterfeiting, and piracy, IP theft. It goes on and on and on. And that kind of thing is going to be very, very hard for our foreign nations cheating us to get rid of overnight. This is not a negotiation, Jesse. This is a national emergency associated with chronic and massive trade deficits that are brought about by higher tariffs and higher non-tariff barriers that take our jobs, that take our factories, that lead to massive trade deficits that result in massive transfers of wealth into foreign hands that jeopardize our manufacturing base and defense industrial base. So no, this is not a negotiation, it's a national emergency. And the president is treating it as such, and it's Liberation Day, Jesse. From an international trade system,
Happy Liberation Day,
exquisitely designed this international trade system, exquisitely designed, Jesse, to steal our factories and our jobs and our wealth through unfair trade practices, higher tariffs, more importantly, higher non-tariff barriers. Yes, Liberation Day, let us celebrate that.
All right. Well, CNBC says it's a bloodbath tomorrow. They don't know how long this process is going to take. Paul Krugman just said you've lost your mind.
All right, let me unravel some of this stuff. I mean, first of all, the media and the economists and everybody in between have been absolutely wrong about trade, going back to the days they said NAFTA was going to be great for America. It destroyed our manufacturing base and led to mass illegal immigration. They said China getting into the WTO was going to be great. We lost 5 million manufacturing jobs and 100,000 factories. And during the first term, Jesse, and this I'm burying the lead. Like, you remember this. Every one of those people, from Krugman on down, said that the Trump tariffs in the first term on China, on steel and aluminum, on solar, on dishwashers, and go on down. What did they say? They said, oh, recession, oh, inflation. What do we have? Price stability, economic prosperity. And for me, the most gratifying thing being in that White House was real wages increasing for workers in blue-collar America and the middle class. And that was the greatest achievement of the Trump administration, besides every...
On this Wednesday night, the U.S. president's wide-ranging tit-for-tat tariffs. The country's getting hit hardest.
Foreign leaders have stolen our jobs.
And why Canada is not on his list. What that might mean. The anxiety among Canadian beef producers.
It's such a small margin, tight margin business.
Plus, we're in a region particularly vulnerable to tariffs. And
Girl, we couldn't get much higher. Yeah.
from Jim Morrison to Batman and Iceman,
You could be my wingman anytime.
the extraordinary legacy of one of Hollywood's greatest leading men, Val Kilmer.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. April 2nd was circled on the American president's calendar weeks ago as the day he would tax imports from countries around the world. And today in the Rose Garden of the White House, against a backdrop of American flags, Donald Trump did a rambling, low-tech unveiling of his sweeping import taxes, holding up a chart showing reciprocal tariffs he'll impose on a host of countries. Canada did not appear on his list.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike.
Trump claimed other countries, including Canada, have been ripping off the U.S. for years. In fact, Canada has an existing free trade agreement with the U.S. that Trump himself signed during his first term. And it seems Canada has escaped the worst of what Trump announced today. We have reporters here in Canada and in London, England, and the U.S. Capitol bringing us reaction tonight. We begin with Jackson Prosco in Washington. Jackson, it was classic Trump today, lots of rambling and that long list. Canada doesn't appear on it. What should we make of that?
Hi, Donna. Well, here's what we understand tonight. Canada and Mexico were excluded because of the existing fentanyl-related tariffs, and those remain in place, including their broad exemptions for goods that are USMCA compliant. Now, Canada does still face steel and aluminum tariffs and automotive tariffs, but basically, we are tonight where we have been for the last month. Now, the same cannot be said for every other country on the planet. They will be subjected at minimum to a new baseline tariff of 10%. But many countries face targeted reciprocal rates that are much, much higher than that. For example, imports from the EU will now be taxed at 20%. It's 34% for goods from China and 25% for goods from South Korea. Now, the White House claims it actually discounted those tariffs to, it says, half of what it says those nations were charging the U.S. in the form of tariffs and non-monetary barriers and what Trump generally called cheating. Trump is also proceeding with a 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars, something he announced last week. And so to do all this, he's declaring a national economic emergency and showing very little compassion to corporations that might face higher costs.
Today, totally unwarranted, the Prime Minister pushes back after Donald Trump targets trading partners around the world with sweeping tariffs.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence.
This is not the act of a friend. Today's decision will add to uncertainty in the global economy.
The tariff announcement dominates today's campaigning. The opposition leader claims he's best placed to strike a trade deal with the Trump administration. Also today, rainfall expected to ease in southwest Queensland from tomorrow, but floodwaters will remain for days. And Australia's Antarctic icebreaker midway through its pioneering voyage to better understand melting glaciers. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Melissa McKay. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has labelled Donald Trump's...
You're tuned into Daybreak on France 24. I'm Karis Garland. It's good to have you with us. Here's a look at our top stories. A major blow, not an act of a friend or just simply wrong. Trading partners are reacting and weighing responses to sweeping global tariffs announced by US President Donald Trump. Thousands of Haitians have taken to the streets protesting surging gang violence and what they say is the government's inability to control it. The demonstration began peacefully, but gunfire erupted later in the day, causing crowds to flee in panic. And the Danish Prime Minister has pledged attention and support for Greenland following Donald Trump's expressions of interest in acquiring the territory. Mette Frederiksen is in Greenland for a 3-day visit. Also coming up, as the Global AI Summit on Africa kicks off this Thursday, experts are emphasizing the need to harness the technology for inclusive growth across the continent and create a safe and secure digital future.
A very good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock on today's programme. Global markets are falling sharply as they react to President Trump's announcement of sweeping tariffs last night.
World leaders react, calling them a major blow to the world economy and illogical. Gauge the UK's response when we speak to the Business and Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds in just a few minutes.
It's Thursday, the 3rd of April. Your headlines.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time.
Donald Trump announces a baseline 10% tariff on all imports entering the United States, plus a range of what he calls extra reciprocal tariffs on top for certain countries.
China, European Union, they're very tough. Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, very, very tough. Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia. Oh, look at Cambodia, 97%.
After being hit with that baseline 10% tariff, the British government says nobody wants a trade war, but nothing is off the table in the UK's response. And we travel to the epicenter of Myanmar's deadly earthquake as the junta there announced a ceasefire with rebels. A very good morning to you. President Trump has announced a universal tariff of 10% on all goods entering the United States. Good morning. Donald Trump hits out with tariffs.
British imports are hit with a baseline 10% levy, while the EU faces double the blow.
European Union, they're very tough. Very, very tough traders. You think of the European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. The United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing. Effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
But as the president ignites a global trade war, has Brexit Britain escaped the worst of the tariff blow, as well as President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has come out fighting this morning?
We are already finalizing the first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel. And we're now preparing for further countermeasures.
Bad news for British households. New stats show we're set to be £400 worse off a year due to Rachel Reeves's tax hikes. That's despite pledges to boost our pockets by £500.
There has been a lot of investigation, but it has not been anywhere near the scale required in order to get to the root of what's been happening across our country.
Harder crackdowns on grooming gangs. Kemi Badenoch calls for a second vote on a national public inquiry. So we're asking today, is the scandal getting ignored?
Huge cuts to policing. The Met will see 1,700 officers and staff go as new additional funding doesn't go far enough.
Calls for more male teachers. The Education Secretary wants British boys to have more visible role models.
And Gavin and Stacey star Larry Lamb will join us to discuss his new mission of getting us all to enjoy the great British summertime.
And in football this week, after beating Everton last night, Liverpool now need at the most 13 points from a possible 24 to win the title. Southampton are just 2 points away now from not being the worst team in the Premier League ever. And how would you react if Jose Mourinho pitched your nose?
Of a sunny one today? Well, yes, for most places, but there are one or two exceptions. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Enjoy.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi, and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Sirk. At this hour, U.S. President Donald Trump launches an assault on global trade order, unveiling sweeping tariffs of 10 to 50% on more than 180 countries and territories. China slams President Trump's latest duties as an act of bullying and vows countermeasures as Beijing faces a 34% levy on top of an existing 20%. Asian markets tumble as the latest set of reciprocal tariffs from the White House turned out more draconian than expected. Myanmar's ruling military declares a temporary ceasefire in the civil war to facilitate earthquake relief efforts. The death toll crosses 3,000, with hundreds more missing.
Africa News. The news.
Africa's unity has been in Israel Wednesday, aiming to prevent a new civil war after first Vice President Riek Machar was placed under house arrest last week. President Salva Kiir's government accuses Machar, his longtime rival, of inciting a rebellion following weeks of clashes in Upper Nile state. The AU delegation, including former Burundian president, arrived as tension rise. Machar's party welcomed the mediation, while the AU's Peace and Security Council demanded his immediate release, warning that his detention threatens the 2018 peace deal. Kenya's former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, also visited Juba but was barred from seeing Machar. Analysts say Kiir, 73, is consolidating power amid internal tensions, while Sudan's ongoing war fuels instability. The 2013 to 2018 civil war, largely fought along ethnic lines, devastated South Sudan. Now fears grow that history could repeat itself.
It was supposed to take place at the end of 2024, but Guinea's military junta now says it will hold a constitutional referendum on the 21st of September this year. It's hoped that the move will put the country on the path to civilian rule, more than 3 years after the junta took over in a coup. The new date set for the referendum comes after the military missed a December 31st deadline to launch the democratic transition. That pushed many into the streets to protest. The delay also triggered criticism from activists and opposition figures. On the ballot in September will be constitutional changes like setting presidential term limits. Voters will also decide on whether current junta members are allowed to contest in elections. It could mark a departure from the transition charter drawn up by the military shortly after the coup. It blocks members of the junta from running. Guinea's military leaders have been long accused of stifling opposition by arresting critics, including journalists, on false charges.
United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights Nada Nashif delivered a report concerning the human rights landscape in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday, highlighting ongoing violations linked to the offensive initiated by the Rwandan-supported M23 group in eastern DRC.
Let me underline with grave concern that since the beginning of the year, the United Nations has documented 602 victims of extrajudicial and summary execution committed by all parties to the conflict in North and South Kivu provinces alone. In Ituri province in the northeast, several groups continue to kill, maim and abduct civilians. Without concrete action, this current violence may well engulf the entire region, and the risks of such catastrophe are growing by the day.
Nearly 26 million people face emergency food insecurity. About 7.8 million individuals are displaced in the DRC, including 3.8 million in the North Kivu provinces alone.
A new era for France after it assumed the presidency of the United Nations Security Council for the month of April, with Ambassador Jérôme Bonafont leading the governing body. One of his agendas is to steer the council to ensure it addresses the wars in Ukraine, the Middle East, Africa and Haiti.
En faveur de l'Afrique, où ces mêmes...
The Security Council, well, we are mobilized for Africa with these very same principles of territorial integrity are being flouted. For instance, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Sudan, in South Sudan, entire populations have been compelled to flee the country, their respective countries, owing to hostilities in South Sudan. The peace process has been undermined, so it will be up to the Council to keep track of those dossiers.
à traiter de ces situations-là.
During the month of April, the Security Council is expected to meet for a quarterly open debate on the Middle East and Palestinian statehood.
Australia's season of spinner Nathan Peter has expressed his excitement ahead of the upcoming ICC World Test Championship final against South Africa, highlighting a fierce competition between the two of the world's best bowling attacks.
The South Africa are going to be a big challenge. They've got some upcoming batters who are very talented. I played against a couple of them in county cricket last year. But I think it's going to be, yet again, two of the best bowling attacks going at each other. So it's going to be a good challenge for all our batters in both teams. But it's another final, isn't it? So that's what you want to play cricket for. You want to be in finals, you want to win trophies. So you get the chance to defend the most. So it's pretty exciting.
He also expressed belief and support for his teammate, Wade Comeback, who was recently cleared of a suspect bowling action by ICC. He had been reported by match officials during a series in Sri Lanka earlier this year, but has since been exonerated.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.